Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Focus One. A little over a year ago, we had Dr. Don O'Shea, the fifth New College president. We brought him on for an interview about a month into the job. We're happy to report that we're going to be bringing him back today to talk a little bit about how the first year went and where he sees things going in the coming year. So, Don, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be back, Frank.
Okay. How quickly time flies. As opposed to a month, now you have a little over a year under your belt. Tell me a little bit about your initial impressions. You knew a lot about New College and this community coming in because you've tracked us for a while, but now you've been here for a full year plus. What do you think?
Well, as you say, I knew a lot about New College before I came in. Relatively little, I realize, about the community. I'd known that Sarasota and the Bradenton area were attractive. I think at the time when I can't remember now what I said when I was talking to you, but I was struck shortly after getting off of the plane how many other institutions there were. I hadn't realized then was how good they are, and what a cross-section of American higher ed we have in this region, this community, and it's sort of unheralded in a way. We don't compete, but we're all about education of the next generation, what's best for students. And it's sort of, we've got something going on here. You know, many places they market things like this. We've got, and they market a lot less. We've got a lot more. Right. And so I've been really struck with that. I've also been struck with, I've really enjoyed the community and getting to know people, individuals, groups. I must say I'm glad the first year is over. It just seemed to fly by. A bit of a total daze in a way. At least I'm finally remembering people's names.
Would the quality of some of our neighbors and our partner institutions here in the corridor on Tamiami Trail, would that qualify as your biggest surprise for the year, or is it something about the community that you learned over the course of the year that you just didn't know and it surprised you?
I think a bit of both, and it's the and I think it's the sheer vibrancy of the nearby institutions, and the I think the engagement of the community as well in different places with different ones, but in a way the sort of lack of collaboration is a bit of a surprise too. And the number of different communities within our community moving out of higher ed, and it's not that people are at each other's throats or anything like that. They acknowledge the good work that the other ones are doing, but the extent to which folks don't collaborate is surprising for no reason.
And we'll come back to that in a little while, talk about some of the particulars. Maybe sticking with New College and the Florida education climate, what during the first year, I'll watch the language, but either a frustration or something that you found particularly challenging, maybe a little bit more so than you thought coming in?
I find I know more about the legislative process than I used to. I find it knowing more and somehow, in some ways, hasn't made me feel any more relaxed about it. In fact, I feel in some ways more daunted. The Florida, I think, and its legislators and its communities care deeply about education. I do think, and this is from a New College of Florida perspective, there's less understanding of what residential liberal arts education accomplishes how valuable that is for this country and Florida. And so it's harder to make that. One has to make that case again and again, and it's hard to make it.
Yeah, we seem to perennially be making that case. Although at a certain sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is some awareness. I think we've made considerable progress with respect to educating the legislative community with respect to the the distinctiveness of New College and the value of a liberal arts education. But from the standpoint of political rhetoric and optics, we seem to get abused just in terms of the push of late with respect to sort of job readiness and a lot of technical education programs. It's as if sort of the undertone is, don't be sending your kid to get a liberal arts education, and that's probably a mistaken. It's not necessarily the best advice for young people. Or maybe I'm wrong. What do you?
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong about job readiness or anything like that. In fact, a liberal arts education, or an arts and science education, as I'm starting to call it these days, it's at the core of our research ones, as well as residential liberal arts colleges.
This is a point that I think a lot of folks don't quite fully grasp in terms of, it's not just New College and liberal arts that are doing liberal arts. The core of most of the larger R1 institutions, Research 1 institutions that everybody's familiar with and loves. It's
totally
liberal arts, yeah.
Totally, and I got asked a lot in my first month here. What's it like to be a mathematician at a liberal arts place? And the liberal arts, or arts and sciences, is really social sciences, natural sciences, humanities, and arts. It's those core elements that we humans inhabit, and it comes as a surprise for folks to realize that. Yes, New College is about humanities, about arts, but it's also about science and social science, and in fact, it has the highest proportion of STEM graduates in the state. I keep telling them that.
We could say that one more time. The highest proportion of STEM graduates in the state.
Yeah, so it is understood that New College is for very bright students and very individualistic in some ways, but it's harder to make the case. It's really solidly mainstream American education at its highest level.
Yeah, I think, when I try to explain it to folks, I think some of I put an emphasis on a balance with respect to skill sets and development. So certainly, we have the highest proportion of STEM graduates. So math and science are part of the liberal arts education. They're not banished from it. It's not all humanities or social sciences, but there's an emphasis on developing a foundation, a well-roundedness, versatility, adaptation. And so you're taught how to learn.
Absolutely.
And what there might be some sacrifices on the specialization side. We allow some room for some specialization, but we're probably not teaching kids or instructing or training them to specialize so quickly. It's more of getting that foundation and being prepared to learn for the rest of your life. And so we turn out a pretty good product.
We do.
It's just, it's not always a product that in today's workforce or economic landscape that has a leg up on some of the more sort of technically oriented jobs. Would that be inaccurate?
It's true. Where it has a leg up is it has a leg up on careers for a lifetime. It really, liberal arts education really is about careers. It's about helping people negotiate how complex our society is and be able to move in and out of one career and another. It's sort of where we probably should be mindful, a little more mindful, is helping our graduates get that first job. Many of the you don't have to win the CEOs over.
Right.
They're looking for the type of students institutions like ours produce. But the people doing the hiring are often out of human resource programs and are not, in some sense, well, they're more narrowly trained. Nothing wrong with being narrowly trained, but there's rooms for all kind. But we've started to make some initiatives to make sure our students get internships and do a better job of pitching what it is they can do and can bring.
And so this is one of the priorities that you're laying out, some priorities.
Yes.
And some. We're perpetually doing strategic planning, but the new president, it's pretty important. And is it fair to say that this is one of your top priorities? Is again, what we're doing in terms of our program, we're positioning our graduates for a lifetime, careers for a lifetime and a lifetime of learning. Nevertheless, we feel we have to go an extra yard sometimes in helping some of our graduates with that first job. And a lot of it is networking, exposure, and those internships, which we've done a lot informally, but we're looking towards emphasizing that a little bit more, tracking it and trying to help.
That's right? Correct. Most of our students, I think it's probably 60, 70, and in some areas it's as high as 75 and 80, are going to go on to graduate school. Graduate or professional school. Mm-hmm. You have to these days. You need an advanced degree beyond a baccalaureate in many ways to function in this society. We're just more specialized, more complex than we ever were. Mm-hmm. But economic realities between these usually dictate that a student is going to need, or possibly may need, a job between the baccalaureate and whatever he or she decides to do elsewhere. We want to help them get in there for that, and we also want to make sure that when they leave New College and complete whatever other program they've got, they're talking about what they can do in ways that make sense to employers and the like.
Let me turn to another prominent theme that's in both in the plan, but it's been a topic of discussion since you arrived, and a little bit before you arrived, and that's the issue, sort of the twin issues of growth with respect to student enrollment and sort of the size of the faculty, and the issue of sort of in-state, out-of-state residency. One of the trends that's quite clear since I've been there, I've been at New College for 10 years, and it wasn't too far behind where I came in that there was nearly a 50-50 split in terms of in-state and out-of-state residency. Since then, we've kind of moved all the way past 80%. I think last year's crop, it was over 80% in-state residents, a much smaller out-of-state cohort. During that time, the gap in terms of sort of the financial load that out-of-state students are asked to bear, still a great deal.
Oh, it's a fabulous deal.
But that gap has been widening. And that puts us in a position where it might be a little bit of a problem, or I think there's a lot of folks, both faculty at New College and I think yourself, that a little course correction is necessary. Why do you feel it's important to move back and to attain a bit more balance between in and out-of-state residents?
Well, first of all, a diverse, and on all kinds of measures, but geographically diverse student body is good education. If the best sort of education a Florida student can get is to meet a lot of his or her peers from around the country and from other nations. And if you don't encounter that in college, you're not going to, you'll be underprepared, because you take your place in the world. You're going to be dealing in a global society.
We're here certainly to serve Florida State students, but if I'm hearing correctly, it might not necessarily be in the best interest of the Florida State students that we're educating to put them in sort of 13th grade, so their classroom looks a lot like the classroom that they had in an honors class before they got here.
Absolutely. That's so true. So in some levels it's just self-interest. It's self-interest viewed from an educational perspective. One learns more. And particularly at a residential place, you learn a lot in the classroom, but you learn a great deal outside the classroom, interacting with people who are different from yourself. And the quality of the discussions, the interchange in classrooms, really depends on the diversity and the quality of the class.
I second that. I've seen it for the last 10 years.
Well, in your area particularly,
certainly.
You can get people speaking from what they know, and if they know different things, it's just a much more vibrant classroom.
Absolutely. There's there's also a financial element to that, or a component to that. And I think there's some that might matter more for New College than perhaps some other places because of our scale. We're quite tiny. The cost per student in terms of getting them through is high. And part of that is simply the tiny scale and the distinctiveness of our academic program. We don't net all that much from state residents, and you know, the state is fairly strapped there. It's not the best of times with respect to education funding, and so it's almost a matter of survival in terms of
for us that way,
you know,
the net tuition dollars, absolutely. The state's not funding growth anymore, so another reason to do this is we do receive more tuition and fees from out-of-state students, so that's one thing. There's another bit of the calculation, which is, and this is when dealing with legislators who are rightly asking, what are the dollars we're sending your way buying? If we're mostly in-state students, and then many of them go out of state for graduate school, they worry about those highly trained, highly able individuals being lost to Florida. Well, if you take out-of-state students, you reverse that a bit. So many, in fact, if you look around, there are so many residents of Sarasota and Bradenton who've done well, or very entrepreneurial, who come back, lived here. They're New College students, but they didn't grow up in state. They were out-of-state students.
Right, and they are introduced to the area as well as the colleges here.
So bringing out-of-state students is another way
reversing
of
brain drain.
Reversing brain drain. So it's important that way as well in the calculus. So it's important to the state as well as to us.
And before I get off too, I just don't want to leave the impression that that for out-of-state residents, it's not a bad deal. There's a big difference between the sticker price for out-of-state residents and what they ultimately pay on average if they were to come here.
Right.
So if we had some out-of-state, again, what is the sticker price?
Well, the sticker price is the sticker price. The sticker price? You might want to explain what that is. It's the rack rate.
Exactly. It is the listed official tuition that you pay, whether you be in-state, which is quite low, and then out-of-state residents. It's it's fairly high.
For out-of-state residents, so in-state tuition and fees is about $6,500. Out-of-state, it's $29,000. The fees. Now, so we have a significant amount of financial aid. Well, it's pretty high. On the other hand, if you look at the tuition and fees at the nation's top liberal arts colleges, they are about 55, 60. Now, but they have the resources to help people that cannot pay that, and that's many people. But so even the sticker price is a deal by comparison, and we do work hard to have scholarships that enable students from out of state to attend for less than that, still more than the in-state tuition. But
on average, out-of-state residents probably pay somewhere on the order of about $15,000.
$16,000 on average. Yes.
So that's still quite a
it's
quite
a great
deal.
Yeah, it's a good deal. It's not insignificant, but education's not good. Education is not cheap.
Okay, so I think we've in a way covered the role that we're playing for students that fit or that are a good match for our distinctive institution, both Florida State residents as well as out-of-state residents, and this increasing, I think, the in-state, out-of-state diversity as one measure, one dimension of a lot of dimensions of diversity. It's helpful both to our in-state students, but it's actually reversing that flow and helping the community. Let's pivot over to the community and talk just a little bit about, you've been here for a little over a year now, and as you said, there's been some pleasant surprises as you begin to learn a little bit more about the community. What would you say, if you had to define our role in the Sarasota-Manatee community? What role does New College play beyond educating, again, a selective number or a selective group of highly intelligent students?
Well, I'm biased, of course, but I see New College as the intellectual center of Sarasota. We have this series, New Topics, that brings current topics. It's on things intellectual, on things in in the disciplines, in the arts, in the arts, in the humanities, in the sciences, mathematics, the social sciences, your area. New College has faculty and students that are really pushing boundaries there. And so we have a leadership role to, that we have played up and down and that we really should claim, I think. And that's not to say that nothing's going on at the other schools. There's lots going on there as well. But New College, I think, is central to the
New College, New Topics. It's a nice little bargain for anybody out there that's interested. I mean, it's a pretty low fee. You get a little wine and cheese afterwards. Get to mingle with the speakers, and we have some.
And
great
I think we
folks,
should be
both
doing
there.
more of that.
Yeah.
I think we should be doing more of that. You know, the latest things that go on in science, in the social sciences, in mathematics, in the arts. We should be making more of that available to the public. We don't. There's stuff that's open to the public. We just don't publicize it as well as we should. We'll change that.
Yeah. So a venue again for showcasing a number of talks, bringing in speakers. Obviously, we view I think our students as our greatest resource, and we again like to have them get out and get active in the community and bring some of the community members on to talk to the students. The faculty, I think, are far more active than a lot of people realize. We don't necessarily house it under one particular entity or brand it, but if you took a look around at the New College faculty, beyond teaching students in the classroom, we're out there doing a lot and engaging a lot as well.
It's really true. And one thing I would say, and I don't want, so I really don't want it to come across as critical, because it isn't. Our faculty are highly involved, often highly involved nationally. Many of them don't know faculty that do similar things locally in other institutions, or retired faculty here. Their disciplinary home is, in a way, the nation or the world, and it would be nice if the institution could help more of that colleagueship and that intellectual vitality be centered in the community in a way. So we'd like to see that as well. There are a lot of mathematicians around here, for example, a lot of political scientists.
Yeah, I think that's. I would underscore that point. If you look at both the intellectual and professional resources, not only that we have at New College, but that exist with some of our other institutions, Ringling, State College of Florida, USF, Sarasota Manatee. Eckert's not too far away. We have the Ringling Museum, a number of different.
Plus, we've got some great research institutions.
Yes, certainly. I've done a lot of work with Moat.
These are great places.
A lot of, and then the retired community, which
it's amazing.
There's clearly. There's critical mass material here, but those reactions and connections might not have been optimized just yet, and so. Maybe tell us a little bit about your expectations or hopes for maybe, again, taking a more active role or having New College play more of a leadership role in terms of kind of bringing some of these pieces and these communities where all of these wonderful assets exist sort of together for the betterment of the whole.
Yes. It doesn't have to be New College, but it could be us collaboratively. What happens is, I think, is that individuals at New College and at other places are so busy. They're just sort of run off their feet. So you have all these links. You know they're there, or that could be made, and no time to make them. I'd like, in the coming year, I'd like to see New College invest not a lot of money. We don't have lots of money, but a little money in creating some sort of way of facilitating people with similar interests getting together, and I think we might just want to get one person or something to do that. At the moment, if people come up to myself or yourself or our provost, Steve Miles, and say, "Hey, I've just moved to the area," they might be a very famous in their field, and we don't have time to make the connection or to introduce them to the faculty. And so I'm hoping we can start a center or something like that, perhaps in collaboration with the other schools, that that would allow us to provide using the word center again, but provide a locus where people can come together and exchange ideas and interact, because interaction is really the key to everything.
And there have been some discussions,
yes,
recent discussions between these institutions,
yes,
correct?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, I think Gulf Coast Community Foundation funded a retreat, which took place in June, for the presidents, the provosts, and a faculty member at each of our area institutions. So at Ringling College of Art and Design, which is one of the nation's best art and technical schools, at Ringling Museum, at University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee, New College, of course. University of USF Sarasota Manatee is a very fine regional comprehensive institution. State College of Florida, which is former community college in Eckerd, and college, which is again a liberal arts college. And when we got together, the sense of excitement was, and it was almost like a train running away. There were so many things we could do together. So needless to say, we need to find the time to follow that up. But the presidents have been meeting, and the provosts and faculty.
Maybe we could bring them all on the show. We could,
well, that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic.
And we'll,
You know, Frank, what's stunning here is if you look at American higher education and the different types of institutions, we got one of every type except one of the research ones. And even in this area, we're a cross-section of American higher education. And then, so we don't have the research ones. There are 230 of those. You know, they're like University of South Florida, University of Florida, University of, did I say South Florida? Yeah. FSU. Florida State, Harvard, Princeton, places like that. But we've got these great research labs. We've got everything, and it's very high quality. Towns that others point to as great college towns, you know, Sarasota, Bradenton aren't on anybody's map. You know, you hear Austin. You hear Ann Arbor, even Greenville or Asheville or stuff, and but we've got more than they got.
It's just a little latent and in disguise, and a lot of people just don't realize that the whole might be more than some of the parts.
Absolutely, and in fact, at the moment we're in the enviable situation where the whole is less than the sum of the parts, and the parts are great. Yeah. And so if we can bring them together, and everyone likes each other. We've got complementary missions. They're willing to collaborate. It would change it would really help. It would be fantastic for the community. It would just, and the community leans that way anyway. It would be fantastic for Florida. Economically, it'd be huge.
Engaging the community, working on internships, again, putting students front and center in terms of engaging the community. Certainly increased collaboration between a number of our brothers and sisters institutions, increasing or diversifying our enrollment, especially in-state, out-of-state. What other things would you list on your top priorities for the coming year?
Well, I did want to mention this collaboration we had with Dr. Abeleish and Daughters for Life. And so one of our goals, of course, is internationalizing the campus. And we are collaborating with this foundation founded by a physician who now lives in Canada, but who grew up in Gaza City. And it had 3 daughters who were killed by an errant rocket shell after the Israeli rocket shell after the Second Intifada. Most people this would have shattered. He went on and decided to set this foundation up to kind of realize the education for girls in the Middle East that those daughters would never get. And so that organization brings girls from Egypt, from Gaza Strip, from Israel, from Syria, and from Lebanon. We'll bring them to New College. We'll take 10 a year for each of the next 2 to 10, and we're working with the community to raise the money to do this and to find host families to do this, that will it'll be fantastic for these women. One of Dr. Avalasia's hidden agenda was that if women were in charge in the Middle East, it wouldn't be things might get fixed.
There's some evidence there that they might be, onto something.
Yeah, they sure wouldn't get worse. Yeah. And of course, educating women is one of the great challenges of this century, and so
it'd be great for our students.
It'll be great for the students. It's great. Much of the community has gotten together behind this. The amount of excitement is great. It'll bring together Christians, Jews, Muslims. And New College doesn't always do well with religion. Here we are hosting possibly not all of the students would be Orthodox Jews or Muslims, but some of them will be. So it'll be good as we attempt to negotiate that. I should say the other institutions, by the way, have a lot of international students here too.
Yes.
State College of Florida has 90. Ringling College of Art and Design, 16% of their incoming class are international. And USF Sarasota Manatee has a whole group here in the hospitality industry from Taiwan. So we've got a larger cohort, and of course New College has a bunch. We have a larger cohort of international students than I think the community realizes. So there's again, with the Port of Manatee, there's huge opportunity for internationalizing the area as well, if the education gets internationalized.
And important, I think, for us, just because we have such a small proportion or small number of international students, that any students that come here feel part of a broader network and not simply a little isolated.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any final additions to the agenda list or final thoughts before we?
Well, I tell you one thing is I'm so glad to have the first year over. I'm looking forward to the second. I'm actually beginning to remember people's names, and I've felt so welcomed here. In a way, I feel like now it's not like last year it didn't work hard, but now I think it's time to get to work.
We're thrilled to have you here, Don, and we'll keep checking back in. But I like the idea of bringing some of the other presidents of our institutions.
Oh, we should do that.
So we probably do that in the next couple of months, maybe.
Well, I feel bad speaking for them, and I won't speak for them, but they're all shameless like myself. We'd love it.
You're proud of them to get them on.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on again, Don.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you for joining in on another edition of Focus One. We'll see you again in another week or so.